Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Dr. Thomas Hemingway here. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out.
So today I have on the podcast a very special guest, somebody that I think is so inspirational, especially to this group here, because she is not only crushing life, but she was the same place where most of you have been or are, or where we might find ourselves from time to time. And she's really developed an amazing approach to making things simple with health, with fitness, just with life. Because I think as we grow older, we often tend to feel like life just gets more complicated and it just gets harder to do the things that we used to do and enjoy. And this special guest makes it so easy. Natalie Jill is on with us. Natalie is here to just share with us her experience and her steps, which are so simple. And I can't wait to hear Natalie Jill's just conversation here. I'm so excited for it. She is a best-selling author. She is just a true inspiration. She has her own podcast, which is incredible. Listen Up. I hope you'll all, be able to follow her there, subscribe, and just follow her wisdom. She is so approachable and so straightforward. She talks straight, and that's what I love about Natalie Jill. Natalie Jill, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, what a pleasure to have you. It's just been a dream come true for many of my listeners. They've been requesting to get you on for quite a while, and I'm so inspired by your journey and what you've kind of been through. And I think it's so not only helpful and really inspirational, but I think it helps us to see that we're all people. We all have struggles. And maybe you could just share with us a little bit about your journey and kind of how you came to this point where you are now, because you're crushing it. Tell us a little bit about what it looks like.
Yeah. So there's been lots of ups and downs along the journey. At the time of this recording, I just turned 51. And I want to say that there's a lot that comes navigating that as well. But how I even got into the space of health and wellness and fat loss and nutrition, because that's not who I was years ago. It was when I was back in my mid 30s and I had just had a baby. And I, for the first time in my life, was experiencing a lot of distress. And what was happening in my world at that time was, one, I just had a baby. So you got the hormonal shifts from that. But what was unusual for me is I was also going through a divorce. I was also losing my home. I was also back in 2007, 2008, when our whole economy was in a major shutdown crash. So I was financially scared and stressed. And I had a full-time job. I was actually a successful sales director. I loved what I was doing, but it required full-time travel. And being a new single mom wasn't going to work. So I had just sort of this big tornado of stuff happening to me. And I'm so grateful for that now. It didn't feel like it at the time, but I'm grateful for it now, because I think when life is just sort of working for us and we're going about things perfectly, we don't really have room to understand or have compassion for people outside of that. I mean, I will say I was the first one that was pretty self-righteous about not being in debt and being, not having issues. And then everything happened at one time. And I remember being in just a full depression. I remember being really scared. I remember thinking my life was over at 35. I remember having a lot of uncertainty and feeling lonely and being scared and hating my body. And there's just a whole bunch of things. And all of that shifted one day. And many of you listening, you might be in that spot now, maybe different circumstances, but circumstances do seem to feel very real and take over our lives. And I was walking one day, and I was walking my baby in the stroller and my 2 white labs that I had, and in the neighborhood that I could no longer afford. And I remember passing this window that had like a mirror reflection looking back. And I stopped and I saw myself, and I really saw myself in that moment. And I let myself really notice how much I was tearing myself apart, how critical I was, it was, Natalie, you're such a loser. And Natalie, you're so overweight. And what did you do with your life? And why are you here? You just this negative, I call it a surround sound, telling me what's wrong with my life. And I just looked at myself. And I remember in that moment, something hit me that I could just make a new decision. And I made a decision. And I tell women right now, I tell women and men, when you want to make a change in your life, that first step is deciding. It's not just jumping into something or trying something, it's making a decision. So I made a decision right then that I was going to change and I was going to create a very different life. And as I literally turned to walk the other way, that surround sound kept coming back, loser, overweight, who are you, terrible mom, broke, getting a divorce, like all the stuff, the surround sound. And every step I was taking, I kept saying, but what if the opposite was possible? So it was like a mind trick. Your mind's telling you, your subconscious is telling you all these things that are horrible. We're meaner to ourselves than we would be to our worst enemy. And I just kept interrupting it with what if something else was there? And I went home, I turned on the TV, and this is back in the days of Oprah. And I turned on Oprah, and she was talking about vision. And she had a guest, Lisa Nichols, on, who's now a coach of mine, a friend of mine now. But I didn't know her at the time. And she was talking about vision. And she gave the idea of, to me, I don't take it as my own idea. If you have to have a vision or a dream of what you actually want, and it's got to be very vivid for you to actually make that happen. So I made a decision again that I was going to create, people call them a vision board. I call it a decision board. And I pulled out what I wanted my life to look like. And I made this decision board, and I would look at it every single day. And I would say, okay, Natalie, if you're the girl living in that board, what decisions would you make today? If you're the fit girl on that board, what are you eating? If you're the fit girl, how are you moving your body? If you're the happy girl in a relationship, how do you have to treat yourself? How do you have to be? If you're the happy mom and daughter, how are you treating your daughter? Like, I had to ask that question every day. And what happened was I started to replace my subconscious with this vision and possibility of what I actually wanted. And that's how everything started to change.
Wow, I love that. The decision board, from the vision board to the decision board, because it's those simple steps that you take that really move the needle in the end. And how cool to kind of look at your future self. What would you do when you're that, person that you want to be, that fit person, that person that has energy, that's in an amazing relationship? Wow, what a great way to look at things, because I think we often get kind of overwhelmed with what some might call the tyranny of how. Like, how are you going to do all these things? And we think there's too much, and we get kind of, I think, stuck sometimes because we think it's just too hard. There's too many things I want to change at one time. Like, how does one start simply to make those decisions on the day-to-day? Like, what does that look like in the start?
Great question. So I used to think we had to take massive action, to get radical results. And, we tend as humans think that we have to do that we have to take all these massive actions. And I'm asking your listeners right now, do you feel that way right now? Because if you do feel that way, that in itself becomes what I call a false assumed truth. I say I kill fat. That's a false assumed truth. Little steps forward every single day make a big difference over time. Little steps forward. You think about planting a garden. You'd have to really plant the seeds. You got to water it. You got to wait. It takes time, and it creates major things over time. Building a house, you lay down one thing at a time. You got to dig the foundation first. Those things that are really amazing are not instant. They're not instant. A decision can be instant. The rest of the stuff is not. So when we look at all these crazy things that we see other people doing, and we think we have to do all of that, it feels like this big, huge weighted blanket. Like you can't move from under it because it's too many things. Well, what I want to encourage people to do is it's just one little step forward every day. One little step forward every day makes a huge difference over time. And, especially let's talk about weight loss for a minute. Healthy, sustainable weight loss is 1 to 2 pounds of fat per week. That's it. When you lose 10 pounds of fat in a week, that is not healthy or sustainable. And I don't even believe it's all fat that you lost. It's muscle, it's water, it's a lot of other stuff. So people are like, well, 1 pound a week or 2 pounds a week, that's nothing. That's 110. That's over 100 pounds in a year. Think about that. That's amazing. So it's one thing at a time. So when you're like, oh, I don't want to get in all the hydration. I don't want to change my diet. I don't have time to exercise. Okay. Do you have 5 minutes to do something different? Let's talk about working out for a minute. I don't have time. I don't have a gym. What if I told you to go hold a plank for 5 minutes every day? Most people can't, right? Most people cannot do a plank for 5 minutes, but we all have 5 minutes. If you were to work towards a plank, this is just one example, every day for 5 minutes, do you think you would change your body and get stronger? You would. Yeah. You would. If you were to do 5 minutes of push-ups every day, do you think you would change your body and get stronger? Yeah. So it's not massive action. It's the discomfort or comfort conversation. It really is. Is it more comfortable to stay where I am right now? Or is it worth the discomfort to change something? Because we all have 5 minutes. We all have 5 minutes. So, and I can apply that to nutrition. I can apply it to everything. But I have to do it all doesn't work.
Yeah. And looking back, we didn't get to wherever we are today in
Mhm.
a day or two or a
No,
month. This is usually years of whatever it was to get us to where we are, and to get out of, if we want something different, it's not going to be tomorrow that it's going
exactly.
to be that perfect vision of what we want for ourselves. It's a stepwise
Exactly.
approach. And the simple things, I love how you just reiterate, it's the 5 minutes a day. And I think similarly, like some days, I want to surf for 2 hours or go
Hmm.
for this long, incredible bike ride, but that's not practical for every single day.
No.
And so the other days, I might do what you said. I might do a plank. I might just walk around my neighborhood, or
Yes.
whatever that looks like. It can be super, super simple. You mentioned something in there that we didn't really get into yet, but you're an expert in fat loss, and not just the fat that is around our midsection,
Mhm.
the false assumed truths that you talk about. Can you lay into that a
Yeah.
little bit more? Give us
So
a little bit more on
so
that.
we tend to, as humans, live by labels, like I'm this age, I'm this injured, my doctor told me this, this happened, and we let that define us. And those are false assumed truths. Every time you say, my doctor told me because of my age, I'm going to gain 20 pounds, that's a false assumed truth. It might be factual, your doctor told you that. It might be factual that some people gain 20 pounds with that same condition, but unless everyone in the whole world that's happened to, it's not an actual fact. And you can have a
Get a
different
new
reality.
doctor.
Yes. I can't stand when that's like my biggest pet peeve with doctors, when they tell you, you have this, therefore it means that, because that's what it starts to mean, I can't tell you how many women come into my programs with, they have this diagnosis and they think it's going to mean a certain thing. And they start Googling that it means a certain thing. And they get all this surround sound of how it means a certain thing. And then that comes to reality. But if you believe the opposite is true, you're going to create that reality. I'm not saying it's woo woo, like you just think about it and it happens, but you do start taking actions based on your beliefs. So if you hear you had a hysterectomy, therefore you're going to gain 20 pounds, and now you have a hysterectomy and you think you're gaining 20 pounds, how likely are you to really stick to your healthy food? Because you're already going to gain 20 pounds. How likely are you to really push your workouts? You're not, because you already, but if your doctor told you you're going to lose 10 pounds, you will lose 10 pounds. It's amazing what we believe. So it's those false assumed truths. We have to rewire them. So many times when people hear my age, you're like, you what? How are you 51? And to me, I'm like, what's 51 supposed to look like? Like, this to me is 51. Like, why do we have this belief that it's supposed to be a certain way? That's a false assumed truth.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is, like, what harm is it to you to think differently? Like,
There
it's
is
like,
none.
yeah, take the example that you said. Your doctor said you may or you will. Hopefully, he or she didn't say you will gain 20 pounds
They
after
do. They
hysterectomy.
usually do.
That's
I hear it all the
that's
time. Yeah, most people,
super
they'll say
lame,
most
but
people this happens. Most people this
yeah,
happens. Or
yeah,
women go in and say, I don't know what's going on. I'm in perimenopause or I'm menopause. I'm gaining all this weight. And the doctor says, oh, it's just normal for your age. That doesn't help anyone. To
uh,
say it's normal for your age does not help anyone.
I
And I
couldn't
hate
agree
to
more.
say it, but this whole body positivity movement is not helping anyone either. It's just not. If you're happy with your weight, amazing. However, is it healthy? I don't know. Maybe it is on you. Maybe it's not. But we got to focus on health. And most cases, a lot of excess weight is not healthy. You've got type 2 diabetes goes up, your risk there, cancer risk goes up, high blood pressure, heart disease, so many things. So I don't know that this body positivity thing is helping anyone.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think most physicians make that mistake with saying, oh, this is quote unquote normal for your age. Well, they could also say your fasting blood sugar is normal for your age. But you know what that means? Normal is, if you look around us,
Yes.
unfortunately, the majority of people are overweight. Like, that's just
Yes.
reality. Two
And
thirds of
most
people are overweight.
diseases, not all,
So,
most diseases
yeah,
are prevented by lifestyle. And
yeah,
almost all diseases, I can't think of one that's not, is at least improved by lifestyle. So even if you've got a just genetic, cyclone, the worst thing that happened, how you're nourishing your body, how your belief set is all going to help improve it. So I don't know of any reason to not adopt that positive mindset and belief set.
yeah. There's no downside to that. And you're completely right with what you said. Almost all disease is affected by lifestyle. Most of the diseases out there, in fact, the top 10 that are worldwide killers, at least 7 out of those 10
Mhm.
are preventable,
Yes.
nearly 90+% preventable.
Yes.
And I,
And people want to tell you
I
the
couldn't
one
agree more.
exception. They want to tell you the one exception. Well, so and so I know was healthy. I'm not saying this is a black and white every
Yeah.
and all. But I would rather take the risk of thinking I've got some kind of control. My dad died at 49 of a heart attack, and my dad was not overweight. He did not drink. He did not smoke, but he did have a belly. He did have, now I know it to be visceral fat. He did have a lot of stress in his life. He had these risk factors. And for someone to have normalized that for him, how did that help? He died at 49. That wasn't normal to have high blood pressure at 49. That's not normal. So I take a stand for not normalizing. See, some people either love me or hate me as a coach. And I get it. Because I'm not going to cater the woe is me. So it doesn't help anyone for me to say, you're right, that sucks. When someone wants to tell me why everything they've tried does not work, I'm going to listen. But if I say, you're right, that sucks, that does not help them get better. I'm going to instead help them find a solution. And I can't do that unless they've actually decided they want a solution. So when people work with me, they are ready for that. They're ready for me to work with their higher version of themselves. I'm going to speak into that. And I get that that's not for everyone. And I understand that. But I think people do themselves a disservice being coddled and having someone tell them, you're right, that sucks.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And gosh, that was actually the thing that got me to kind of do a little bit of a pivot in my own life, as well as in my physician practice. I was trained in the standard Western medical approaches. And I personally, I feel good about what I did for many years in the emergency room. I'm a board certified ER doctor, and I took care of people in the throes of their worst injuries, illness. But chronically, I knew and I felt that we were doing among the worst job in the world as far as preventing disease. And I started to see people, unfortunately, sadly, like your father, who were coming in their 40s, sometimes even in their late 30s with heart attacks. And I was thinking to myself, what are we doing here?
No.
We are just, something is not right. I'm coming up on 50 next year, and I was seeing these younger people come in with heart attacks. And I'm like, holy crap. I feel pretty darn good with my, I'm active, I eat well. And could this happen to me? Holy crap, what's happening here? Something is missing in our society, especially in medicine for sure. And how can we do more? How can we shift that quote unquote normal, which normal, it may be the average of all people right now, but it's not. I'll just be like you. I'll be the first to say it's actually not normal. It's not normal to be overweight. It's not normal to have an elevated fasting blood sugar. Although we have normalized it,
we've normalized it.
Normal.
No, and this really over the last few years during the pandemic, it really became obvious to me, because obviously I'm not going to get into a discussion about how people were so divided on treatments and all the things. But what I will say is that there was no allowed talk of preventative, nothing, just simple things like make sure you're getting vitamin D, make sure you're working on your immune system. Why was that so shut down? That made me so angry. I'm like, why isn't there a combination? We should be approaching from both sides. So I think we've gotten really comfortable not looking at preventative and not being responsible and not taking accountability on ourselves. And we have to. We've gotten into this world of blaming everything else and circumstances versus what we actually can control. I am a woman and going through menopause right now. That is who I am. And I refuse to take on the belief set that my life is over, that I'm going to just gain all this weight and constantly be in pain. Now I have things happen to me. I've had more injuries than I bet most women my age have had, because I'm an athlete. I mean, I've torn my bicep. I broke my foot. I had a surgery of that. I ruptured a disc out of my back. I know pain. I get it all. And I'm 51 and I've had a baby. I have all those things too. And I'm not saying I don't have a superpower over other people. There's nothing. It's just that I've learned to shift my relationship with it. And another example is I have no disc between L5S1. Those of you that don't know what that is, that's your very bottom of your lower back. Most women have issues, degenerative disc disease in their lower back. By the time you're 50, you do a MRI, you're going to see it there. Not only did I have that, some people feel it, some people don't. Mine ruptured out. It actually ruptured out. I had lost use of my right leg. I had foot drop. I had all the things. I did not get a fusion. I let it heal. I'm hoping it'll fuse together on its own one day. I have a lot of pain there, to the point where in the morning, sometimes I don't want to get out of bed, but it's a decision every day that I'm going to break that pain cycle. I can either lay around and complain about it and not move and just be in pain, and everyone would understand, oh, you're right, that sucks. Or I can say, I'm going to get up, I'm going to eat anti-inflammatory, I'm going to hydrate, I'm going to move my body, I'm going to break the pain cycle. And I'll tell you, when I actually start moving around, I feel amazing. So it's a belief set that we have to be okay with.
Yeah. And I love that you shared that it's not pain-free. It's not a
No.
pain-free life. I mean, I get that. And I think that we will all experience less pain if we eat an
Yes.
anti-inflammatory diet. Like that's pretty, I love that, but it doesn't
No.
equal zero pain. And
No.
we can wake up with pain like you have just shared. And I've heard your backstory in other podcasts and interviews, and you're kind of minimizing it. As an ER doctor, you know, that's seen this kind of thing, that was sort of a near life-threatening type of thing. Like you may not have ever walked again.
No, I
Like,
had
it's pretty
emergency
dang
surgery.
serious.
Yeah, it was emergency surgery. It was like you're having surgery or you might not walk again. And that's, by the way, why I won't have a fusion, because there's a very small risk that could happen with a fusion. So I don't even want to navigate. Now, I'm not against Western medicine at all. Like, look, I have my share of NSAIDs when I need them, and I'm all about that too. And I also am very responsible. It doesn't make sense for me to eat a lot of inflammatory foods because I'm going to have a flare up. It doesn't make sense for me to be sedentary because I'll have a flare up and, you know, just learning yourself. Like I learned myself about, okay, if I have no disc in my lower back, what other muscles do I need to activate so I can take that out of the equation? And it became really evident to me that if I have a strong core and strong glutes, I can actually take my lower back out of the equation. So I focus on building my glutes. And then people say, well, how do you build your glutes when you have it's all learning. But that's why anyone listening, no matter what you are navigating, no matter what you're navigating, if you start focusing on what you can create that will work or will help it, you will find that. But you have to start focusing on it. And that means you stop going on Google and Googling however it's doomsday. You stop complaining to your friends about it. You stop finding doctors that want to baby it with pain meds. You just do, because that doesn't help it either. And pain meds are different than like an NSAID that helps inflammation. I'm not a doctor, but I'm going to say that. But it's just, we have to get really responsible with this. And it's a decision. Some of you listening decide that that's not for you. You don't want to go down, but it is possible. And that's what I want everyone to realize is once you realize it's possible, you are a decision away from changing your whole life.
One decision away. I couldn't agree more. And it's just that I actually had this happen to me today. I haven't seen your MRI, but I've had one myself because I was getting numbness in both of my feet. And, you know, as a male and as a male physician, I was ignoring it. And then pretty soon it was like, I got to at least check this out. And I have several slip discs in my lumbar spine, and I haven't had any surgery, but I've navigated how to, like you said exactly and astutely, was strengthening my core muscles and my hip flexors and all of the,
and your glutes.
Important, and the glutes, of course. And today, actually, I woke up and my back really hurt. And I typically get up and do some kind of a workout in the morning, and I didn't want to because my back hurt. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm usually feeling good, but what I did was I didn't do my workout immediately. Instead, I walked my kids to school, and then I did a lap around the neighborhood, and I'm like, okay, I might be able to do this. And then I did my workout later, but I didn't want to do it.
Yes.
You know, we don't always want to do it.
Is your disc L5S1?
That's one of them. Yeah. Okay. I have a couple, but that's the one that's most problematic.
So most people, that's where it is, but I'm going to change your life right now. The next time that happens, what I want you to do is go lay on the floor and do glute bridges. Squeeze, like just lay on the floor, back flat, and squeeze your glutes up. It is amazing how that will activate your glutes and take that pain away. It's like a life-changing exercise when you're in that situation.
All right. Glute bridges. Yeah.
Glute bridges.
I know what that is, but I wrote it down because I want to share that with others. And
without weight, you just squeeze, you're laying on the floor and you're not using
weight.
Your back. Yep. And you just squeeze, and it's my go-to when I have a flare up or that pinch or whatever. So my point is everyone's different. Everyone's body's different. Everyone's formula is different, but it's always possible. And everybody, as we age, is going to experience pain of some sort, which just happens, you know, whether it's just aging, it's your injuries, it's whatever, things happen. It's your choice though, what you're going to create from that. Do you go downhill and create, lack of movement, depression, and I'm just accepting that I'm old and this and that? Or do you say, nope, I'm going to go and create something different? I'll tell you, when I tore my bicep, I used to on social media be like the queen of the rings. I used to do all kinds of crazy calisthenic stuff before I had my injuries. And when I tore my bicep, I didn't know I'd ever be able to do chin-ups again. And I lost supination in my right arm where they had to cut the tendon to repair it. And as soon as I was cleared that nothing was off limits, I couldn't do a chin up because I can't turn my hand. So I worked on pull-ups. So now I can do pull-ups. So, which is just your palms the other way. So it's another for everybody else. Like you're like, I used to run, I can't run. Okay. What else can you do? Can you start biking? Can you start swimming? There's something else you can do that's going to give you that same empowered feeling versus being stuck on what you can't do anymore.
Yeah. I think that is so telling, because focus on what we can do. I broke my arm last year, and actually the year before that, I broke my other arm. And prior to that, I hadn't broken a bone in my entire life. And my go-to was always the traditional pull-up for my body weight exercise. And I couldn't do that for almost 2 years. And I can do them now, and I can do sets of 10 like I used to. And it feels amazing. It's one of my favorite things. And it helps my back to just hang there sometimes without even doing the actual pull-up, just
totally.
Hang there.
It's amazing. I love that.
But what I loved about what you said is that you have to look at it from the things that you can do, because it doesn't serve you to be the victim. Like, yeah, we can get some people that kind of go, oh, I get it, and, have that sort of commiseration, but how does that serve us in the big picture? Like, it doesn't. And one thing you shared about, and you're going through this now, maybe you can give our listeners and viewers a little bit of insight that you've gleaned so far, but with respect to the menopause thing, like a lot of my listeners are either going through it, or they're perimenopausal or postmenopausal. Like, what are the things you've learned with this, and how can they approach
a few things. Well, and I'm right in the middle of kind of both. It's like, my body's still figuring out what it's doing. I just know it's not normal right now. And my cycle is completely like sporadic, and where I never had that issue before. So number one, I do think we should check our hormones. I think it's important to know. However, I'm not a fan of just checking hormones without doing all the other things, because it's kind of like, I picture it like a body of water. If you walk by a really clean body of water, it's really crystal clear blue, and it's pretty, and you throw one piece of trash in it, you know exactly what's creating the eyesore. However, you walk by a really dirty body of water, it's all muddy and yucky, and you throw a piece of trash in, you can't even find where you threw the trash in. So I'm going to relate that to hormone testing. If we are not already eating healthy, eating unprocessed natural real foods, hydrating really well, getting great sleep, taking care of ourselves with movement, you can test your hormones all you want. You're not getting an accurate read, because you're throwing it off with all other kinds of things. So what I say is, let's dial it all in first. Let's start moving. Let's start sleeping again. Let's start doing everything we can do naturally first, and then test. And then I test every 90 days. I want to know what's going on. And it's wild how it fluctuates. It does with women. Men don't understand us fully. It does fluctuate. But I'm also very cautious with hormone replacement therapy. I think it could be used. It's also can be dangerous. Just to give you an example, a lot of women take testosterone. They'll do bioidentical testosterone. They're like, oh, that doesn't cause cancer. It's fine. Well, depending on how your body converts it, testosterone can convert to estradiol, and you're going to create all kinds of issues. Then you're estrogen dominant. You need progesterone, and it's never ending cycle. So you want to be really aware of what your body is naturally. You want to really try to do as much naturally as you can. There's some supplements I love for that, like maca is great. It helps balance hormones. There's some natural things you could do to naturally increase estrogen, increase testosterone, that first. And then if you need bioidentical hormones, work with a doctor that really understands that, and test consistently every 90 days to know.
Yeah, you got to check under the hood, but it's even more helpful to do what you started with, the natural things that are so helpful. What I found is that so many of us have insulin resistance, which is the most common hormone problem in the world. Nearly 88% of us have some form of it, whether it's mild, moderate, or severe. And if we can correct that through what you said at the beginning, through eating real food, unprocessed food, with what I call the evil triad, that doesn't have the processed gluten and the sugars and also the seed oils. If we can avoid
seed oils, all of it.
Yeah. If we can avoid those things and just eat real whole food, the chances are our insulin levels will improve, and that will literally improve nearly every other hormone, including estrogen, including progesterone, including testosterone. So
and cortisol.
Do all that first.
Cortisol goes really hand in hand with that too. And what I find, this is a common trend I found with women, and I'm certainly not a doctor. It's just what I've seen with my own clients and my programs. A lot of women turn to melatonin for sleep, and melatonin then spikes their cortisol around 3 a.m. So then there's like cortisol, there's like this whole, so everything you're doing, melatonin too itself is that you're messing with hormones. Like every time you're adding something on your own without actually testing, you could create another issue.
Yeah, so true. And I think that's a big problem with Western medicine, is we don't look at the big picture often. We just kind of see that one thing. Well, melatonin helps with this, but what we don't look at is it could affect all of these other things. All of these hormones talk to each other, right? It's not a vacuum. We're not just a simple petri dish. We're living, breathing humans that all our
Yes.
systems are interconnected, and one thing will always affect so many things. So why not start with those simple, natural, easy things that can move the needle, and then check under the hood too. I highly encourage, just like you said, we got to check. If we'd never
Yes.
test, then how the heck are we going to even have a place to start from?
And then there are some
uh,
definite Western medicines and things that help too. It's just a matter of having the whole picture for sure, I believe.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And what have you found with, you've talked a little bit about the anti-inflammatory diet, if you will, and how that can be so useful. Maybe talk us through that a little bit more. And
Yeah.
what does that look like in an average day
Yeah.
for
So
Natalie Jill?
I eat, my rule is it's 95% unprocessed natural real foods. I have played a lot over the years with removing grains or dairy, sugar, all the things. In fact, my second book, Aging in Reverse, I take out all grains and dairy, which helps dramatically with pain. By the way, for most people, if you're navigating pain and inflammation. However, everyone's body is different. I know for me, I don't do well on high fat diets. I just don't. And with the trend of keto and carnivore and all this, like everything seems to be labeled keto friendly and people automatically assume it's healthy. Maybe with pain and inflammation, not so much with weight gain and other things. So we still have to be really mindful of that. So how do I eat? I eat a natural, real, unprocessed food. I still really do look at fats and I really look at carbs and proteins, and I'm really balanced with that. And I really watch portions. What people tend to forget is that per gram, fat per gram is 9 calories per gram, where carbs and proteins are 4. So as much as I'm not a fan of calorie counting, we still got to pay a little attention to it. So when you're eating this high fat, high protein diet and you think you're being an angel by cutting all your carbs, you are probably eating a lot more calories than you think. And those calories can still get stored as fat. So we still have to be really mindful of that. So I back that down on people. I'm not a fan of eliminating anything. It's really about balance. So I, use my hand just to make it really simple. Like fat is about the size of my thumb, protein's about the size of my palm, carbs, like a piece of fruit, the size of my fist. I mean, that's pretty much how I'll look at it. And I am really pay attention to, the source of the food. Did it once grow? Is it natural? I don't want antibiotics or hormones in it. I don't want anything added that can mess things up. And I really do watch that. And the fat, I've really started lowering. You remember years ago, everyone was so anti-fat, like, yeah. And then it went to this, but it's gone the opposite now, the anti-carb. I think people really need to take a look at the fat. I think a big reason a lot of the weight is going up with women is this big amount of added fat, eating nuts by the handful, eating a whole avocado at a time. We still have to watch that.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I love what you said, that there's no one diet, one thing, one way of eating for everybody. We all are different. And that's what makes the world so amazing. Like I tell my wife that all the time, even though we have similarities, we're very different. And she says to me, well, would you want to be married to yourself? Wouldn't that be boring?
Yeah.
And she's totally right. Like the uniqueness, all individuals have different things that work better for them. Some people a lower fat, some people a higher fat, some people, there's variety. And I love that you're not like on one extreme or another, because it's all there, the carnivore folks, the vegan folks, the keto folks. And it's kind of like, I hate that all or nothing, because I really don't feel like that's the most useful, because there's great things in all of those diets that will be beneficial.
Villainizing things. Like we made fat bad. Now we've made carbs bad. Now we're actually making lectins bad. We're saying that plants are killing us. I mean, there's a lot, like just there's part of me is like, wants to just say use common sense too. Like if something's like, I don't believe broccoli's killing us. I just don't. But there's doctors saying that it does, that plants have defense mechanisms, whatever. So there's, you find what works, but I think you can't even figure out what works for you if you don't put the other things in place. Like you have to eat unprocessed real foods. You have to move your body. You have to hydrate. You have to do the basics first so you can even feel and start seeing what's ideal for you.
Yeah. No, everybody, I haven't met one person that can't benefit from eliminating those wicked 3 things, the processed foods, basically. If you eliminate that, no matter where your diet goes with real, whole, natural, well-sourced foods, you're going to have a leg up. You're going to be doing much better with respect to how you feel, decreasing inflammation, better hormone balance, and just go with what works for you. Use the intuition. Your body is a gift, and you have that personal connection that nobody else has. So don't let somebody tell you this is what you should do because that's what I do.
Exactly.
Well, you're different than they are. I mean, take your own approach as long as it's real, whole, well-sourced, natural food. I couldn't agree more. That's awesome. What do you say to people when it comes to, in our, say, 40s, 50s and beyond, we just don't feel like we have the quote unquote energy. And they, you and I get this all the time. My metabolism is slowing down. Like, what's your approach to that?
Yeah. So when your metabolism does slow down and you do lose muscle, those are things. But again, it can be a false assumed truth. Like, what does that have to mean? So yeah, granted, if I gain 10 pounds at this age, I can't just dial it in for 2 weeks and have it gone like I used to. That's a metabolism thing. Got it. But it doesn't mean it's not possible. You just have to really pay attention to it. So the first and foremost is we have to pay attention to muscle. We are not paying enough attention to muscle. When the more muscle you have, the more calories your body burns at rest, the better your body works and the leaner you're going to be. The leaner you're going to look, the leaner you're going to feel, all of it. So we have to pay attention to muscle. So to me, that becomes protein and then also weight bearing exercises. So and you can do weight bearing exercises with body weight, by the way. A chin up is body weight, a push up is body weight, but you have to create resistance on your muscles and you have to fuel it with protein to grow it. So I do start encouraging as we age to be eating pretty close to our body weight in protein. I do feel that that's strong. However you're getting your protein, because the less muscle we have, the more problems we have. We're going to feel more pain. We're going to slow down our metabolism more, all of it. So first and foremost is pay attention to the muscle. Start lifting, start moving your body, start adding more protein. That's number one. Two, listen to your body. If you're getting tired, foggy headed, do you need more rest? Are you sleeping well? Do you have an Oura ring? Are you tracking your sleep patterns? Do you know what your deep sleep is? That's important right there. I think a lot of women, especially, they'd be surprised. They think they're sleeping 9 or 10 hours a night, but they're getting no deep sleep. Your deep sleep is what's restoring you and helping you feel better. If you're slumping at 3 p.m, listen to your body. There's a reason for that. It's not that you need caffeine and sugar. Maybe you need a rest right then. Maybe you need a little nap. Maybe that's the time to go for the light walk or lay down and do your meditation or read a book right then. Like, plan your day around that versus fighting it. You'll rarely see me doing an interview or something important at 3:00 because that is Natalie's not focus time. So instead of fighting my body, that's the perfect time to go lay down and listen to something or listen to a podcast or walk or, something else, that doesn't require a lot of brain power. So instead of fighting and going, what do I need to take to fix my energy? It's more, what do I need to do? What do I need to understand about my body to fix it?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And right now, I'm blessed with a very young child who's about as active as anybody you've ever seen. And she just turned 5 and she has a spring to her step. She's always jumping. She's always moving. And I look to her because there's lots of studies that look at metabolism. And yes, with age, it does slow, but usually not until at least 50, maybe 60, some studies would suggest. And what does slow is us, right? We do slow. I mean, we don't want to admit it. We're all pretty active, but sometimes when you consider maybe where you or I were when we were at our peak of activity and we count like how many different exercises or just different activities, we are a little bit, generally speaking, moving less than when we were younger. And I think it's a simple solution. Like you said, you just have to just do those simple things. Just get up and move, whatever that is for you. The body weight is, I think, so important because many of us will say, well, I don't have a gym membership. I can't afford one, and then we just kind of check it off as something we can't do. But that muscle mass, which, if we don't do something, we get sarcopenia, which is what you were talking about, which is the loss of muscle mass as we age, which is said, right, to be quote unquote normal, but it doesn't have to be normal.
No,
just because
I know many people in their 50s, 60s, 70s that have a lot of muscle.
Absolutely.
But they work at it.
My idol is Mark Sisson. Like, I want to be like him when I'm 70. And like, that's my kids always kind of use that as an example because he's got plenty of muscle mass, and we should all work on our muscle mass because not only will it improve our metabolism, just as you appropriately mentioned, we will burn more calories at rest, but it improves so many other things. We feel better. We're more mobile. We can do more. I mean, what I like to approach this with is I ask people, what do they want for themselves? Do they want to be able to do X, Y, Z with their grandkids? Like, what are their goals that are tangible, that they like? And use that as the impetus to just get up and go for a walk every day, whatever that little thing is. It's just one thing you kind of mentioned at the very beginning, but we talked a little bit about your sort of 3-legged stool or the tripod that you talk about in the book. Maybe we could just go through one example of how we could incorporate that into just a simple everyday thing that maybe somebody's
Sure.
struggling with right now?
Yeah. So there's three, what you're talking about is there's three parts to overall wellness and to aging well. And it's state, plate, and weight. And picture a triangle, states at the top, plate and weight are equally at the bottom. Let me explain what that means. So state is changing your state. It's your belief set. It's what you've decided. It's your vision. If that is not in place, nothing else works. Doesn't matter how you eat, doesn't matter how you move. You are not going to fully step into what is possible for you if you don't change your mindset around it. If you believe that you are old and washed up and injured and it's too late, that is what's going to present. You have to change your belief set around it. You have to, like, that is number one. And nobody in my programs stays in my programs if they don't get that. Like, that's because I won't even get into nutrition or workouts until we're here. So I have a bunch of exercises I'll take people through to make sure they're super laser clear on their vision and what they've decided for themselves. And we kill all those false assumed truths first. We have to do that. The next is plate and weight, and I'll put those equal. Plate is nutrition, weight is your workouts. I think they're actually equally important. So some people will say, like, abs are made in the kitchen, diet is everything. I don't necessarily believe that. If you take an Olympic athlete, they can eat whatever the heck they want. Like, they're burning 10,000 calories a day. They're going to be, fit no matter what they do. So there is a point where workouts can outweigh your nutrition. It's true. However, most of us are not that. So nutrition is really, really important. And I have lots of things I teach in nutrition, but just like we've been saying it over again, it's really quite simple. It's eating natural, real, unprocessed food, and it's eating less than you're using in a day. Like, that's how we lose weight. I mean, it's just true. And that seems to be so shamed lately. Like, oh, it's so evil to talk about weight loss. It's so evil to talk about burning calories. Like, no, it's what works. We have to do that. You have to create a deficit to lose weight. I don't know what science rock somebody's not living under that they think that that's not the case, but you have to create a deficit. You have to burn more. You have to eat, like, you have to it doesn't move if you don't. That's nobody lost weight eating more than they were eating when they started. It just doesn't, you can't do that. So then there's the weight, the workout part. There's two rules I like people to focus on there, and that's progression and intensity. And let me explain what I mean by that. When we look at intensity, people automatically assume I mean like an Olympic sprinter. That's not what I mean. I mean intensity for you, meaning, do you get your heart rate up? Do you challenge yourself? Do you push yourself more? I wear a heart rate watch. I wear a Garmin, which tells me my heart rate. And I'm actually was shocked to learn where my heart rate actually was during workouts. It was not what I thought. I wasn't training in the right zone. So being really aware of, are you creating the right intensity for you at the right times? Really, really important. And then progression, meaning, are you challenging yourself more? If you think your workouts aren't working for you anymore, good chances you're doing the same thing you did 20 years ago and you haven't upped the weight, you haven't upped the reps, you haven't changed it. And yeah, it's going to stop working. It just gets easier. So all three are absolutely important. I would say the state is the most important part first, though.
I couldn't agree more. It's got to start with the state. State is everything. That's where you're going to actually have the desire and want and ability and energy to even go through those next couple of steps. If you're not in the right state, like, forget it.
Yes.
State is everything. I love how you put that at the top of the pyramid or the triangle or whatever you want to call it, because I think many of us forget about that, right? We just think about, okay, what does the workout look like? Okay, what does my plate need to look like? And we get all wrapped up in all these details and we forget, hey, let's look to where we want to be, that vision board that you said, let's pick out what we want our life and our health and all these things to look like, and get in the right mindset and state, and then we can tackle anything.
Exactly.
Like, it really can happen that way. I hope this is okay. I just noticed when you were talking, your I think it was your right arm, you have a tattoo there.
I do.
I know what it says because you've talked about it, but I'd love for you to just mention that a little bit and what that means to you, especially right now at this point in your life, and how I think viewers and listeners can really learn from that.
It's meant different things to me over the years, but it's interesting that it happened on my same arm as my bicep tear. So it's the word surrender. And the big meaning when I got it was, a lot of people think it's a religious meaning. That's not why I got it. Why I got it was the opposite of control, because I realize how much we think that we can control things and we can't. And the big lesson for me was all those injuries I had. Every time I think I've mastered something, like something else is thrown my way. And every injury I had them in a span of 2 years. I had 4 major injuries. And every single injury, I was like, what in the world? Like, I wanted to go down the excuse lane. Like, my life is over. This is that, I had this whole thing, and I just kept remembering that you can't control anything, and I've got to surrender into it and look for the lessons in it. So it's my only tattoo, and it's on my right forearm because I wanted it to be something I would see every single day and not be able to avoid seeing that word. And when I tore my bicep and I was going into surgery, he had a cut like right there. And I'm begging the surgeon, don't cut my tattoo.
No.
But it's just funny that it's right under my scar on that right arm, which your right bicep is your masculine, which is very much a control thing. So I just thought that was interesting that the tattoo ended up being right where I have my bicep tear.
Yeah. Wow. What a cool story, and what a great lesson, I think, for all of us, because I think I'm similar to you and many of us, right? We're kind of like control freaks. We want to have everything,
Yes.
in a certain way, but like, let's relinquish that and let's, but at the same time, there's so much we can do, but stuff's still going to come our way, right?
It's
and we
true.
have to be able to adapt and be able to
roll with
it. And this as well as I, especially having children, that all, it's such an important lesson. We think we can control them. Oh, we're so
we
wrong.
Cannot.
Nope. So, oh my gosh, it's been so fun. So I know we're getting close to time here. I would just love for you to share anything that maybe you want to also, elucidate before we close. And then where can people reach out to you? How can they get your book, your programs, all of that amazing stuff that you're putting out?
That's amazing. So what I want people to take away from this, if you haven't heard yet, is make a decision. Sometimes people hear me and they want to get combative with me. Like people are in either two camps, like, yes, everything you're saying, or they're like, they want to argue with me. And I'm not, you can be combative with me, but I'm going to tell you, if you are not where you want physically and how you feel in your body, and you're being combative, look at that, because what you're doing is not working. So like when people want to argue with me about whatever they didn't agree with, but they're not where they are with their body, that, it's something to look at there. Now, if you are where you are with your body, you probably don't want to combat with me because you're probably not even listening to this because you're where you are with your body. Right. But so I want you to recognize that, and then just know that you really are a decision away. So it's a decision. And a decision is not messaging me and saying like, hey, Natalie, I decided, and then telling me 100 things wrong with you, because that's not a decision. A decision is, I've decided that this is what I'm stepping into. And it's just a definitive statement. But when someone starts with, I've decided, and they give me 100 reasons why, that's not a decision. So I just want to be clear with that. I believe every single person listening has it in them to improve and become the best version of themselves. I believe every single person is capable. I believe that people don't even realize how powerful they are until they really accept that decision. That's what I want to say. And as far as if you want to learn more, I'm pretty easy to find online. I've got books, I've got all the things, but the best place is probably Instagram. Natalie Jill Fit is where I post almost every day. And then if this resonated and you want to learn my fat loss method, then I would look at totalbodythrive.com. Totalbodythrive.com. It's a very thorough 8-week program that I do 6 weeks a year live. And people get radical results, and that's it.
Awesome. Yeah. Natalie Jill, what a pleasure. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. You are amazing. Thank you for sharing your light and your smile, and you're just such important move the needle stuff. You've been incredible. Really appreciate you. I hope everybody will not only follow you there on Instagram, Natalie Jill Fit, but hop on over to your website, get your courses. You're just putting out so much value. And you do the thing that I love so much. You talk real. You're not letting people, dissuade you with what's popular, what have you, or what's normal. I love how you just talk straight. That's one of my favorite things about you. So keep crushing it, keep doing it. And thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss out on any future episode. And I'd love to hear your comments and feedback. If there's any topic you'd love to hear about, you're dying to know, burning questions, please comment below and let me know what future topics are of interest to you.